everybody! So it's still Valentine's Day week, so I'm going to do a quick review for you guys of a couple of books that I read. So I'm going to do Anna and the French Kiss and Delirium, both of which were in my top 10 Valentine's Day reads. And I've read them both recently, so I thought I would get to that. Also, got my Doctor Who mug and some hot chocolate because Doctor Who is love, and so is chocolate. And that's what I'm going to be doing on Valentine's Day, probably. Eating chocolate and watching Doctor Who. So, let's get started. So Anna and the French Kiss is a story about Anna, who is an American girl who goes to a boarding school in France, and she doesn't know anybody there, and she meets this guy named Etienne St. Clair. And he is super gorgeous and awesome, and everybody's super in love with him. And she's the new girl, so she's very determined to make people like her and not have him be an issue, but she falls for him, as you might have guessed by the title. So this is sort of the story of them getting to know each other and their romance that eventually blossoms. I thought the setting was fantastic. Paris, awesome, loved it. You get a lot of cool landmarks in this that I didn't know about, so that was really cool. The setting's great, plot's great. There's not a whole lot that's bad to say about this book, actually. I thought the romance was really fantastic, and I'm not a fan of romance, so that's saying a lot. The only negatives of this book really were that St. Clair is in a relationship to start with, and I'm not a huge fan of the whole homewrecker thing. I thought it kind of sucked that Anna comes in sweeping in and she's like, well, even though you've got a girlfriend, I'm gonna take that spot. And I thought that was that wasn't the greatest thing for her to do. But I also understand that his relationship with his girlfriend is not the best either, and it kind of needed somebody to come in and shake things up to make it work. The only other thing that I didn't love about this book is how crappy of a friend Anna is. She's really, really awful to her friends, except for St. Clair. And I thought that was kind of too bad because she seemed like a really cool person and she just kind of ignored her other friends a lot, which might just be because she's so fixated on this romance, and I get that girls get a little bit crazy when love's involved, but I thought she could have done a better job of keeping her friends in the loop and actually remembering that they existed. Other than that, I thought this was a great book, and I absolutely recommend it to everyone, even those of you who are not fans of contemporary romance, because I don't read contemporary romance at all. This is the first one I've read in ages. So I absolutely recommend it to everyone. So now we're going to talk about Delirium by Lauren Oliver. I just finished this book this week. It's the story of it's a dystopian world where love is considered a disease. So they call it the delirium. Deliria? They call it the deliria. I can remember things. And it's that at age 18, I think, you get something called the cure, which basically shuts off your function to love other people. And it's really bizarre because it's one of those dystopian worlds where you're looking in and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much wrong with this world, but nobody in the story actually thinks there's anything wrong with it, which was really interesting for the first half of the book or so. And then the main character starts to realize that she's wrong, and that's where things get really interesting. The coolest thing about it actually is that at the start of every chapter there's this like little Bible verse or nursery rhyme from their world, and it's really cool because the different like psalms and stuff, I don't know if you can see it right there, they are changed from our regular Christian, I don't know what Bible people normally use, but they're changed, the stories have changed to accommodate this deliria. So the story of Joseph and Mary is changed so that Joseph like leaves Mary alone and she gets I guess she gets the cure or something, and she lives a happy life, but Joseph doesn't. I don't know the actual Bible story, so I'm Jewish, what can you do? Anyway, that was really cool because it links it back to our world, and I loved that. The only things about this book I didn't love were the main characters. The love interest, Alex, he was okay, but that's all I can say about him. He was okay. He wasn't really that interesting. I thought he was a little bit boring at times, but he's absolutely necessary because he's sort of the gateway for the main character, Lena, I don't know how you pronounce her name, to sort of discover love. And the main character, Lena, I had a couple of problems with her. They're not massive, but they do have to do with her character development. And I thought at the beginning of the story she was very, very concerned with the cure. She really, really wanted the cure as soon as possible because her mother died from the deliria, and she's really freaked out about it. She's super concerned about getting the disease, and she needs to get the cure like ASAP. But partway through the story, she decides she doesn't need the cure, and she falls in love with this boy, Alex. And all of a sudden, she doesn't care anymore. And that bothered me because she goes from having very strong opinions to being this silly, giggly girl in love. And that bothered me because I wanted her to stay that strong character. I wanted her to have that internal conflict of wanting the cure still, but also being in love and not knowing which to choose. Whereas in the book, she sort of just decides already. And then there's this weird part where she has to decide, but you know she's already decided because, I mean, obviously she's decided. She's head over heels for this guy. Other than that, though, this book was fantastic. It had me, like, yelling at it at the end. I'm really excited for the second book, Pandemonium, and the third book, Requiem, comes out this year fairly soon. So definitely look for those, and check this one out if you haven't read it yet. If you have read either of those books, I would love to hear your comments below in the comments section. If you haven't, I recommend them to you absolutely. If you guys have any books of that general genre that you would like to recommend to me, I'd love to hear about them. So any contemporary romances that you guys love, or any dystopian romances that are just dying to tell me about, I'd love to hear about both of them. So comment below, subscribe, do your thing. See you guys next week. Bye.